Good morning and welcome to the Gospel Loft. We are reading together a book to fill a gap. Now, we are in chapter 5 and the book is called When Angels Let You Fall and God Picks You Up. The chapter starts with a verse from Proverbs, chapter 29 and verse 18. When there is no vision, the people perish. There was never lack of ideas or vision in my life. This was never my problem at all. It is more the converting the idea into reality where the problem normally starts. In the 1960s, South Africa was still suffering from a political system of apartheid, and my wife could not have a mixed race clientele in her shop, in her hairdressing shop. People of color could only come after hours and on Saturday afternoon to have their hair done. Cape Town, it wasn't as bad as further north in the country, but still. Then there was still another matter one seldom is aware of, and we have 3 types of different hairs given to humanity. European hair is round like spaghetti and rather fine in texture. African hair is flat like noodles and much more coarse. It therefore rolls itself into tight curls. Asian hair is dead straight and round and coarse and tends to stick up as if it is electrified. Every type of hair needs to be treated differently. Added to this come the cultural differences and cultural desires, and often even a cultural flight. For instance, white people roast themselves in the sun, totally covered with suntan lotion, just to get more brown. They are fleeing from their own skin. In winter they go to a roasting studio not to lose the summer tan. Now, while black women, on the other hand, they cover every square inch of their skin, not to get blacker and buy themselves blonde wigs. We saw the market gap and we thought to open a hairdressing school for black people's hair. It would open a complete new concept in the field of hairdressing, we thought. We hired a shop in District 6. It was a district with history, one of the oldest parts of Cape Town. At one time it was a Jewish business district with a multitude of different shops, and their main road was Hanover Street. Everybody lived there quite happily. That was pre-apartheid. And then segregation came and it became run down and often ruled by different gangs. But it would have been the ideal place for such a school. Today it is elevated into a nostalgic area. Unfortunately, the whole district became a political and economical playground. The people who lived there were forcefully removed into new developments outside the city centre, and we sat with a shop without purpose. The people whom we wanted to serve were no longer there, and the whole idea suffocated in the circumstances of that time. What now? My career as a professor at the Academy of Hairdressing was a short-lived dream. But then, just how life always turns out to what we thought it would turn out to be, a window of opportunity opened itself. A Swiss turner and fitter, or engineer, that I knew vaguely, a farmer's son from the canton of Aargau in Switzerland. He wanted to open an engineering business and was looking for a workshop. Well, I provided the shop. He brought the skills and we started a business together called Alpine Metalworks. I became his apprentice, and he taught me to cut metal, to weld, and whatever was needed to be of assistance. We made wrought iron garden furniture, gates, fences and balustrades, and worked almost day and night with very little financial reward. Paul, that was my partner's name, had a violent temper. Oh, and his blood pressure hit the roof. Our association would or could not last. very long because of that. But in a previous job, he was employed by a company that manufactured industrial boilers. And he was the man who went out to install these monsters. The company approached Paul and gave us a contract to install one of these boilers in a brewery in Lusaka, Zambia. Well, it would sort of bolster our finances a bit. Well, we planned to go together and applied for visas. Both having Swiss passports, it should not be a problem, we thought, but it was. And I got the visa and he didn't. I had never even seen one of these monstrous creations, which took up the full length of 2 railway trucks. The firm went back to the consulate and explained that they had made a mistake and given the wrong person the visa. So Paul went to Zambia eventually and installed the boiler. And he wanted to do the job outside of our partnership so he could take all the money for himself. And the result is quite simple. The partnership was dissolved. Well, at least I had learned how to weld thin square rods and pipes together. Well, I took the shop back and changed the business name from Alpine Metalworks to Alpine Stoneworks. Oh yes, he left me a drilling machine. Oh yes, well, a good lot of use that was. The hairdressing business went well and my wife had a well-to-do clientele, which soon brought something new to the table. Isn't Werner an artist? Or could he not? They saw the paintings on the wall and they thought, an artist is always a good man to have. Yes, yes, of course, Werner could. He could lay out their gardens for them and design the outdoor living area for them. And the first job arrived. Now, during that time at the St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town, they added a new wing to match the old. It was all built of natural sandstone, and the masons were there to do it all. I hired one of the masons, Henry. And we began to build natural stone walls, terraced the gardens and laid out pathways and built waterfalls. And already the neighbor who just finished a house next to where we were working needed a stone wall too and a driveway from road to garage, laid out with interlocking bricks. And soon everyone knew us and more work came our way. Then the factory which made the interlocking bricks could no longer supply the smaller contractors like us because of a great demand for their products. And there was only one solution to this problem. We need to have vision. Yes, and the vision was very simple. Make your own roadstones. Now here my ex-partner Paul from Alpine Metalworks came in handy again. First I designed 2 new shapes of interlocking bricks, which were much more decorative. The one design was more sort of abstract, like a shoulder stone, and the other more like a Cape Dutch gable. I gave Paul the order to build 2 hand-operated machines with vibrators to compact the cement, plus a pan mixer. It took about 3 weeks and the foundation of a concrete business was laid, and all that in the shop which was originally thought to house a hairdressing school. Oh, we extended our drying area onto the pavement and we stacked the newly made bricks 5 high on pallets on municipal ground. Well, at least we got something back for our taxes. At the same time, we came up with a new name and created a company that needed to be formed. But here lays the secret to become a company director without going through the ranks from sweeper to the top. Just form a company and print the calling card. The company's name was Laylock Pty Limited. Soon the shop was too small and we began to move from place to place, and as the company grew. Partners came, partners left. We built the house in a potentially upmarket suburb with 2 better cars in the garage. Well, business was booming. And then after 8 years of South Africa, I went back to Switzerland for the first time to visit my parents and to wean myself of the desire to ski. It was the end of 1974. And then we come to chapter 6. Here again we have a scripture to start off. Luke chapter 12 and verse 16 and a little further. And he spoke a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. On the 18th of March, 1975, my wife gave birth to our daughter. Now we had the ideal family. My parents came from Switzerland to pay us a visit. Everything appeared to be perfect, and we thought that it was all our own doing and a reward for our own effort. That, of course, until June 1976, when a man appeared at the threshold of my office. We had a secretary, Miss J, short for an unpronounceable name. There is a man here who wants to speak to you, she said. A well-dressed gentleman came in to the office and introduced himself. My name is Herman B. Oh, yeah. He was an architect and wine farmer from Stellenbosch, KWV. Then he told me a story that fitted in no way into my present life. This is what he said. As I drove past your place, God spoke to me, saying, stop, go behind this wall and speak to the man in the office and tell him, lest he changes his mind about God, his kingdom would come to naught within 3 months. I was the man behind the wall, an atheist, and I had no time for religious nonsense. One of our salespersons was called Mac. He was a Christian, and it was my calling in life to convince this man that there was no God and that he was just deluded. I wanted to hear nothing about God from anyone, and made sure our conversation was as short as possible. God spoke to him. What gibberish was that? Yet somehow this Herman did not look as if he was mad. He was well spoken, well dressed, well educated and all. But nobody knows what's going on behind the skull of a man, isn't it? The story was soon forgotten. A week passed, and Miss J came to my office again, almost whispering, the man is here again. What man? Well, the man God spoke to. Well, let the man come in, Miss J. I was in a better mood this time, and I thought it would be fun. There was Herman again, well-dressed and friendly. He was all apologetic and explained how he was driving past my factory again, and guess what? God spoke to him again. Go behind the wall again and tell the man, if he does not change his mind about God, within 3 months his kingdom will fall. Then somehow he tried to explain to me how one would get to heaven. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I did not want to sit on a cloud playing a harp forever. I told him that I tried this God thing once before in 1964 when I was living in Paris. I even tried to read the Bible then, but it had made no sense at all. He gave me a card with the words, should anything happen in the next 3 months, give me a ring. Yes, just call me. It was as if he was convinced something would happen. And then he left. Herman the architect was soon forgotten again. Nothing happened in Cape Town, but up north, the black population was rising up against the apartheid government. Yet it was soon suppressed by the army and the police. Nothing like this would or could happen in Cape Town. We weren't like them further north, we were much better. The 3 months passed and September came. Everyone was looking towards summer. Yes, it was happy days ahead. Our factory was situated opposite the township Nyanga. There were only 3 such townships in Cape Town. The other 2 were Langa and Guguletu. the black population was relatively small in the Western Cape. There was nothing like there was something like a job reservation in place for the so-called Cape Coloured people. These people were descendants from the original inhabitants known as the Hottentots, Sandbushmen, Strandlopers, and also from the Malay slaves, and some of mixed race. The Malays were brought in as slaves from Indonesia by the Dutch many, many years ago. And these groups of people had employment preference, whereas people from the homelands had to have work permits and passes. Against all odds, the unthinkable happened in Cape Town. The coloured and black population rose up too against governmental apartheid laws. The result was less bloody, as we saw it in the Transvaal during the June riots. We couldn't get to work for 10 days as the roads to our factory were closed. What met us after returning to work was catastrophic. The factory was destroyed. The black night watchmen murdered. All finished products were looted together with all raw materials. The roofs were torn down, water pipes demolished, the office used as a toilet, the machines hacked to pieces, and all this only at my factory. Nothing happened to my neighbors, and I was the guy that was looking after them so well. It was the first time the angels had let me fall. Looking back, it was well earned. I felt as if all energy was drained out of me. The cork had turned into lead, and there was nothing left to start again. The bank also did not want to help me and instead called in all the present overdrafts. Creditors and debtors were eating each other up. There was nothing left. My nose was just above the water, like that. I stood on my toes, not to drown. No waves, please, no waves. My office, which was full of human excrement, I found the little card in what was left of my desk. I put it into my pocket and left, never to return. Nothing could be saved. My personal Armageddon had come and my kingdom destroyed. My 40 workers were without a job. My partners, who I carried over the years, forsook the sinking ship and left all the trouble to me to save us from bankruptcy. All the house and the hairdressing salon together with our private cars, well, they were still ours, but the rest was gone. 8 years of hard work. I went to work with my wife and even thought of becoming a hairdresser. She was not keen on the idea, and I even less, and we buried the idea. In my pocket was still Herman's visiting card. Now and then I looked at it, took it out. Should I phone him or should I leave it? Well, we'll find out next time when we look at chapter 7. Until then.